And it is the Saturday Coffee Klatch with Heather Lofthouse. And today, our special guest, who you have seen before, Michael Lahanas-Calderón.
Hello.
Michael and Heather, thank you both for joining me today. I think something is coming up in a few days. We're going to be talking about it. What specifically is on our agenda?
Hard to say.
Heather, I'm frightened. I'm going to admit right away, I'm frightened.
I know, but we are going to get through it together. So we're going to talk about the role of gender in the election. We're going to talk about the fact that voter fraud is not actually happening.
No.
We're going to talk about what we should be doing and thinking and feeling in these last 3 days. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Feels great.
Let's get to it.
Okay.
Julia Roberts. I mean, when you say gender, I'm thinking Julia Roberts. Why do I think of Julia Roberts? Because
Pretty woman.
Julia Roberts, she was the voiceover in this commercial that became incredibly, just the last couple of days, incredibly controversial. And it became controversial because Julia Roberts was saying to women, you do what you want. You have a right under the Constitution to vote to forget your husband or forget your boyfriends. And I mean, talk about igniting a prairie fire among the misogynists of America.
I know. So wasn't it a Kamala campaign ad?
I believe so.
Right. And so she basically said, doesn't matter who you vote for, it's your secret. Go ahead, ignore your husband, kind of thing. The right has gone crazy. We've seen it. Jesse Waters on Fox News. We've seen
Charlie Kirk.
Newt
Gingrich.
Yeah, and they've all said, I mean, what if women are lying about that, what's next? I mean, it's a slippery slope to God knows what.
I think this is an amazing reveal. You know how on the computer you used to have reveal code? I don't know, is that still something?
I'm not sure.
Well,
Definitely
anyway,
not a thing.
this is a reveal about what the GOP is. I mean, the misogyny and the men requiring that they dominate and that women are subjects and they follow their men around. I mean, this is a big deal.
We have seen this again and again and again in this campaign and this country, by the way. But it is wild to watch it. And let's think, who's the one bringing up gender in this election? I'm sorry. I think it's the Republicans who are doing it on purpose. I mean, Kamala Harris doesn't say, I'm a woman. I mean, she says, you know what we need? Reproductive freedom. But these Republicans and Trump repeatedly.
He wants to bring it up over and over and over again, gender and also race, sotto voce, because that is misogyny and racism. Those are the things he believes are going to get him back into the White House.
Yep. And did you see the New York Post headline that came out just on Friday? It was, men, get out and vote and don't let Harris lie her way into the White House. And the substance was basically that Republicans are nervous that so many women are out and voting early, especially in swing states.
You know, this is Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, just like Rupert Murdoch's Fox News. These are places that are not terribly friendly to women, as we know. They have histories, checkered histories with regard to women. But the misogynist in chief is...
Donald Trump. Can we take a look at his latest?
Yeah.
And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. I said, why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said... They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say. I pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
There you have it, whether they like it or not.
Whether they like it or not. And that phrase, whether they like it or not, I think typifies Donald Trump, who goes after, when you're a star, you can grab them by the genitals. When E. Jean Carroll in the dressing room, he doesn't care. He can put on Supreme Court justices and say, my justices are going to end Roe v. Wade. I mean, this is a man who hates women. And, I mean, look at his own personal history.
I know, loathes them. And also, I think he just is disparaging writ large. We know this all the time. But his comments about Kamala are so specifically misogynistic as well. Did you see that earlier this week around economics, he said she's a child? I mean, he's trying to demeaning. It's how little can he make her? Call her a child.
Well, that was the best,
the nicest,
the
right.
best of them that we can put on the air. But I think that the constant reiteration of ridicule and negative things about women and about Kamala are not necessarily helping him. They may be helping him with the male, white male, non-college base. That's basically the Republican Party now.
But let's think. I mean, if we didn't have the 19th Amendment and only men were voting, I have to be honest. This is a reality. I hate to even say this, but it feels like the election wouldn't be as close as it were, as it is, right?
There's no question about it. The gender gap, we know from every poll, and this is not just one or two, or this is 25 polls so far. The gender gap is huge in this election. Women are, generally speaking, voting for Kamala Harris. Men are voting for Donald Trump. And the younger and less educated you get, the more the gender gap.
But how does this compare to years past, right? Because it's interesting. When Hillary was running...
Well, this is an important point. Women voted for Trump in 2016 over Hillary. In 2020, there wasn't a gender issue, but women voted for Trump again. But the reason women have been voting for Trump over and over again is less about gender, obviously, than it is about class. This is the issue that nobody wants to talk about. Democrats don't want to talk about it, and I think it's a shame that they won't talk about it. But if you have a college education, chances are you are voting for Kamala Harris. If you don't have a college education, chances are you're voting for Donald Trump. And why is that? Class.
You go first, Michael.
I'm going to guess something about the economic outcomes of particular classes in this country.
Well, because there is such a huge economic gap. I mean, the earnings differential is gigantic, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And more of the nation's income, is being siphoned to the top, mostly college graduates. And if you happen to be in finance, so much the better. And I think people are, if they don't have a college degree, know that. They are resentful. They are taking it out on the Democratic Party. For years, all I hear from the Democrats is the suburban swing vote. We have to go after the suburban swing. What they're really, really saying is the suburban women are making all the difference, and we have to get every one of them.
But women's agency is on the ballot, right, in terms of reproductive freedom, and now it's become this bigger issue of power in the home and ability to vote for who you want to vote for, which, by the way, is the basis of democracy. Your vote is a secret. It's not a secret. It's just your own business.
Did you see that this is on TikTok? So I know you both are on TikTok less than I am. And
maybe.
Duh.
Well, the former director of White House personnel under Trump, he's got a whole little gimmick going where he'll go to a restaurant and he'll sit and he'll eat something and say something snarky that's usually pretty misogynistic and terrible. And the last one that he put out that went super viral was him saying,
They misunderstood. When we said we wanted male-only voting, we meant male, M-A-L-E.
And had previously made a joke about, oh, well, maybe this is making me rethink the 19th Amendment. Like, the kind of casual misogyny and just the fact that they're even feeling comfortable enough to joke about repealing something like the 19th Amendment, let alone any of the other ones that they don't like, is terrifying.
Well, they want to go back. They want to go back to before the 20s.
To the 1890s, as Trump has explicitly and literally said, which is incredible.
I mean, but it's bold now. I mean, they have the courage of their semi-convictions, and they are willing to say things that Republicans have not been willing to say ever in my memory before.
But as part of this, I mean, if we go back and if we subjugate women, I'm going on a limb here, then I will also go back in time and I will have I will have more money. You know what I mean? Is it
who's the I? Kimosabe?
A man, this man who's on TikTok, who's on YouTube, who's mad at his wife for not telling him
I will have more money,
for.
but I'll also have more status.
And
I mean, it's status.
Yeah.
What has happened to the white non-college male over the past 40 years is He has been on a downward escalator. His wife has gone to work.
Not
She
Trump's.
is getting more education than he is. 60% of the undergraduates today are women. 40% are men. What does this mean? It means that the earning potential of women keeps on going up. The earning potential of men, even college-educated men,
Yeah.
are going down, but most men are not college-educated.
Well, if you don't mind,
please.
I'd also add, just as a young man, so many of my peers are getting served up a media environment that is extraordinarily right-wing. The casual influencers, the lifestyle influencers, the people on sports broadcasting and commentating, it is a casual level of misogyny and racism that exists that is driving, I think, in addition to the economic factors, so many young men to sort of buy into the Trump movement a little bit more easily than they might have otherwise.
Can we just go drill into
Yes,
that
please.
a little bit,
I have
Michael?
questions,
Because you're
too.
saying that they're getting a diet of right-wing stuff off social media.
social media, yeah.
And how do you define right-wing, and why are they getting it?
I mean, why they're getting it, that's a bigger question I think that the social media platforms need to answer. As to what the substance of it is, I mean, it can range from everything from sports betting is a very interesting and new example, which I'm personally very opposed to because it creates these kinds of outcomes. You've got sports betting and crypto influencers all over the internet these days. And that particular group is kind of culturally right-wing in a way that is very odd. I don't know how to describe it other than that, but if you looked it up, if you're so inclined, viewers, you would sort of see what I mean. And you've got a lot of people who are kind of, these are maybe strange and familiar terms for you both, but I hear them all the time, grind and hustle influencers. So they encourage young men to, you've got to be strong and dominant and, do all of these things. Go to work out, forget about women, trust yourself. And it's trying to fill this gap, I guess, that they see as there are not enough male role models. But the outcome is that you have a lot of right-wing, or what are ultimately right-wing influencers peddling really strange and unfortunate ideas to young men who are there, because they have good incentives, right? They want to lift themselves up maybe, and they want to take care of themselves.
But here's my question for you. So we all thought it was going to be the TikTok election.
Yeah.
And I think, interestingly, TikTok has had less an effect, we think, I mean, who knows really, than we thought, right? And I think that's for multiple reasons. I think the way the platform has had to change, but also there's this notion that Trump keeps going on these podcasts, and he is going on for hours.
Joe Rogan was 3 hours, right?
3 hours, but so the parasocial relationship in this bro world is cultivated better with these long experiences, right? A quick TikTok, you don't have that pseudo rapport with the person on the influencer on the other side. So I think this is one of the things the Trump campaign has done brilliantly, which is utilize the existing misinformation or information market and do the things that will get to these men and do them in a way that will really get to them.
I also want to go back to the abortion issue, because if there's one way of controlling women, it is forcing them to have children. I mean, this is Margaret Atwood. This is the what's her
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale. This is the Handmaid's Tale, and it is becoming the heart of today's fascism and the Republican Party. And I think that the reason women are rising up, one of the reasons is women, even Republican women, are saying, wait a minute, I have to have some control over my body. It's my right. And I think this may be responsible for the first time in years that women reject Donald Trump, even the non-college women.
Yes.
Control is the word. And I think that underlies so much of what the Republicans are saying. It's that fear of the loss of control, whether it's in the home or, in the political sphere.
But men fear, young men especially,
Yes.
fear the loss of control because they are facing an economic system that has systematically rejected them. And I'm talking about the non-college particularly. And this is why there is such anger out there.
Yeah.
And this is why Donald Trump has tapped so maliciously and directly into that anger.
Right. And I think you and I and so many of us are so scared, and we keep looking over there and saying at the opponents, right, and saying, how can this many be following him and saluting him and agreeing with him and hitting the like button on all the podcasts and all of it. But can we just, in addition to looking over there, can we look to our left and our right? Over here this way. Think about all of these people who are pro-democracy, these women who are coming out, we're talking cultural icons, whether it's actors or whatever. We're talking sports stars like LeBron James the other day. We are talking about our allies around the world. Now, the numbers are scary, but tens of millions of people are going to choose democracy. They are choosing the truth. And on the other side, we have so much disinformation. So people, when they know the truth, would vote for Kamala Harris, but they don't know the truth. So I have to continue to think of that in that optimistic way, where it's this misinformation game and the playing on the fear is so fierce. But I have to look to the left and right instead of just to the other side to remember this upswell of hope and support and faith and seeing the truth and doing the right thing.
But the weaponization of misinformation is coming through social media, not only via, dark money, where we have no idea where it's coming from, but it's coming from Russia. And Russia is once again, and there's a lot of evidence of this, playing the hand for Donald Trump. And we have Elon Musk. I mean, how can we write the history of this disgusting election without talking about the disgusting Elon Musk and using his fortune for Donald Trump and his platform? He should never have been given the right to have a platform like X, like Twitter.
I know it. He should not have. So, Michael?
Well, I mean...
how do we solve it all? You're on TikTok.
How do we solve all of it? I don't know that I can answer that, but I do think that, if you want to talk about TikTok, just getting the information in front of people is important. TikTok is an interesting example of that because there is, I hesitate to call it a trend, but that's sort of the language, so we'll use it, where young people are seeing the Access Hollywood tape for the first time of Trump talking about what he talked about in that tape, and they're shocked. These are people who were barely old enough, to remember really what happened in 2016. And I think stuff like that is making a difference, reminding people of the actual things he's actually said.
It's so hard for people to keep in their brains what Trump said, what he represents, all of the outrageous things that he represents in America, and the hate. What the Republican Party, now taken over by the election deniers and by Trump, is all about it's about hate. It's about prejudice, white Christian nationalism, and misogyny.
But it's the Gish Gallop. It's constant. So this week, for me, I was like, how are we not all focusing about what he just said about Liz Cheney? How is that not the top of every newspaper that no one reads anymore?
Well, you mean about the firing squad?
Yeah, he said, now granted he was talking about her view on war, and then said, how about she goes in front of 9 guns, sees the barrel, has it on her face? How do you think she'd like that? That is horrific. So we have whatever he said, I won't repeat it, for Access Hollywood. To me, that was like, that should be the end. And then that should be the end. The number of times I think that in my head for this man, it's just a constant
But it's never the end. It's never the end. And the reason...
But it will be on Tuesday.
But even after Tuesday, look,
I agree with
we
that.
have 48% of Americans, let's assume it's roughly 48%, who are going to vote for Donald Trump. Maybe it's 49%. They are still here.
Yeah.
Heather, Michael, your generation is going to have to deal with them. Yeah. I'm not after that. I'm leaving.
But we really have to look at, whatever happens, we have to look at all this disinformation. We know this, that if you open a pack mid-October and you haven't spent before October 16, then you're not reporting your donors until after the election. So there have been some sneaky people, and there's a lot of stuff happening where they're using the cultural trends, and they're using people's feelings, and they're manipulating them, right? We have faux pro-Israel groups taking out ads to try and get people to vote for the Green Party when it's not exactly what they're saying it is. It's probably Republicans doing it. A lot of this is alleged, but we have really a lot of lying and a lot of going behind these ads. It's a very ad-heavy election. We cannot understate this.
And artificial intelligence creating deep fakes, which are very, very hard to see as deep fakes.
Can I be honest, though? I thought there'd be more to
Well, there's one this week, actually, that people were demanding that Elon Musk remove from X, which, supposedly showed a Haitian person voting multiple times. And, I mean, that probably escaped containment very early and is just now floating in people's phones.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk is not going to take anything down.
Of course not.
Elon Musk is actually...
Could I remind us of a few things that he said?
Yes,
I mean,
please.
talking about putting facts in front of people, he suggested there would be hardship and that the economy would probably suffer initially in order to achieve whatever Trump and Musk want to achieve.
And that's fine. There's going to
You
be
mean
hardship.
we're not under Trump,
Under
with
Trump.
Musk as the economic...
Yeah, the head of the
kind of-
Department of Government Efficiency, where he plans to slash $2 trillion, which is, Social Security, Medicare, the military, the FBI, everything, basically. And, this is coming from a guy who is, how many hundreds of billions of dollars in government subsidies has he gotten over the decades?
about $9 billion,
I think
as
so.
far as I can recognize.
Just an
But-
incredible
Plus-
sum of money.
But he also has a monopoly over SpaceX,
Yep.
rocket launching. He has a monopoly over Starlink. I mean, he's putting up more and more satellites, and the government is more and more reliant on him. And he's going off and having conversations, regular
chit-chats
conversations
with Putin.
I mean, how is this
Putin's
possible?
disinformation guy.
Yeah, and Putin's disinformation.
That was
person.
interesting, too.
And if I could continue down the list of
Okay,
things
but just
Republicans
quickly,
have
it's
said
so
this
painful.
week, I know. Mike Johnson said that the Republican Party would probably think about repealing Obamacare, and does anybody remember pre-existing conditions? I don't actually, because
I
was
do.
not old enough for that to be something I was conscious of, but my parents do, and you do,
Yeah.
and you do. The world before pre-existing conditions being disqualifying for insurance,
And I
terrible.
feel like they'll make being a woman a
Oh my gosh.
Pre-existing woman.
pre-existing condition.
And if you want to talk about healthcare, they're talking about putting RFK Jr. in charge
Stop.
of
I
whatever
know.
that means, both Health and Human Services and the USDA.
Well, it would
And
be
women.
funny. Wait a minute. This would be funny if it weren't so
So
frightening.
horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, and what you're saying, Michael, these are not making it through to most people.
Yeah.
Even the major mainstream media, they are not elevating this to what we would expect it to be.
No.
I mean, they're still caught up in this, equal
False
access,
equivalence.
false equivalence.
Yeah,
Both
they'll take
sides.
one gaffe from Joe Biden this past week, and somehow that will drown out the 30,000 things that are coming out of both the Republican Party and Trump's mouth and Musk's mouth.
Yep.
And that disgusting Madison Square Garden. I mean, Trump's final say, his final message to the American people was nothing but racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, all of the hate in one big Madison Square Garden ceremony.
Can I just say it's fun to be here with you two? I'm liking this, but I do feel like I'm at a tennis match as the person in the middle.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I'm liking this.
But you're the woman, and we want to defer to you.
Thank you. You're the only one. So thank you for following what should be the way of the world. No, one thing actually I really do want to talk about is one of the other bajillions of lies, the voter fraud claims and the clips. I keep seeing clips of Donald Trump saying that was stolen and that's rigged and that's a lie and random people are voting. Let's get the truth out about their, relatively speaking, voter fraud is not something we need to worry about, relatively speaking. You said something the other day that was so funny. What are some of the things that we need to worry more about than voter fraud, Michael?
Well, this is, courtesy of the Brennan Center, even the Heritage Foundation did a study on this, across the spectrum, not an issue. It's more likely that you're going to be struck by lightning than having someone impersonate a voter at the polls. I mean, we're talking 30 credible claims of fraud over a 14-year period, according to the
30
Washington Post study.
individual claims.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, it's not just that these are things that happened. These are things that happened, and then the people were immediately caught.
Right.
And so often you have seen in the post-Trump era, Republican officials deliberately committing very small acts of voter fraud to prove that the system is rigged, only to be instantaneously caught by the system that they claim is rigged.
Yellowstone is more likely to erupt than there is a chance of voter fraud happening.
And same with in terms of a person being eaten by a shark is more likely than voter fraud as well.
Like fully eaten or just a nibble?
I'll have to ask the Washington Post.
Well, I also heard that your chances of being crushed under a refrigerator,
I think it was a vending machine.
a vending machine, were higher
Yeah.
than
Or refrigerator.
voter fraud.
Pretty grim.
I mean, but really, truly, this
But-
is important.
But
Yeah.
no, this is important because the entire Trump campaign and much of the Republican Party is now based on this notion that the 2020 election was stolen because of voter fraud and that the 2024 election is likely to be stolen because of voter fraud, and that immigrants are coming in and doing all of this voting fraud. This is the center. This is the centerpiece.
Yep.
Instead of dealing with the real problems of this country and the world, what are they doing? What is Trump and the new Republican Party doing? They have manufactured a non-issue that gets everybody upset about nothing that they should not be upset about, and they are turning on immigrants, they're turning on their neighbors, they're turning on other people because they are scapegoating.
Yeah. Bob, you are fired up today.
Well, I woke up this morning, and I felt so angry. Interesting. Not depressed. I just felt angry. How did we ever get to this place?
I know.
Why should we be here?
I know. And so, what are you going to do with that anger?
I'm gonna sit
Says
and
the
do our own Coffee Klatch.
Good.
With two of my wonderful colleagues.
But so you'll channel it into action.
And you voted, yes.
Oh, of course.
Of course you voted. But also then we have to think about using that anger to change the world, right? That's what you've told me were you lying?
No, let me just say that for the last 65 years.
Since you were 13?
Yes. Very quick. You must be a math whiz.
Yeah.
So I've been directly or indirectly involved in running around politics. I have never been as fired up, and I've never been as angry and as worried about the future of this country. And let's be clear. We're talking not only about the United States, we're talking about the world. Because what happens here has a direct effect. I mean, look at what's going to happen. You can mention Trump gets elected, Ukraine, that's the end of that country. I mean, basically, Putin's going to take it over.
He's going to do a reality show that's actually just reality with all dictators.
Yes,
and
just
as we
all
saw
dictators.
After 2016, you've got far-right movements across the world, not necessarily explicitly copying Trump, but in many cases almost.
Right.
Borrowing slogans and attitudes towards democracy and challenging and contesting elections. It's terrible.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple things, please, while I still have you all.
Yes.
This is the last clutch before the election. Okay.
No, well, we're going to do a special election clutch, but we won't get to that.
Yeah, but on Tuesday night we will have a live from the election night live. We'll be talking. Okay, but so in terms of the economy, this is, I hate to say it, another theme of lies that are coming out, and what Trump has said he did and what reality was, But the economy right now, again, many people are suffering. So let's be really clear, economically and otherwise. But the general numbers we track, we as policy people and, media folks, are looking pretty good. How's inflation?
Inflation is down to 2.1%.
That's low.
The Fed's goal was 2%. I mean, basically, it's a soft landing.
Yeah.
A soft landing is amazing. We've never had a soft landing from high inflation ever before without a recession.
So do we shout about this over the next 3 days? I mean, what? So we have 3 more days until this election.
Now, we did have a disappointing jobs report on yesterday.
But you warned us about that on a Coffee Klatch.
Yes, because of it was both, we had big strike and we had
the hurricane,
the
right?
Hurricanes, yeah.
Both hurricanes. And so you're going to have a slowdown. But the economy is good. But let me just do a footnote here. If you are somebody, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if you're somebody that does not have a college degree, the economy has not been good for you or your children in 40 years. And this needs to be understood. The Democrats need to understand it. When I woke up this morning angry, I was also angry at the Democrats. I mean, just why did the Democrats turn their back on the working class? On the Franklin D. Roosevelt part of the FDR coalition. The working class is critically important. If we learn one thing from this debacle. Is it debacle?
Debacle.
Debacle. If we learn one thing from a debacle, which I hope is not going to turn into
just a
the
debacle.
ultimate debacle, it's that we Democrats have got to organize and focus on the well-being of the working class.
I know it. And I do think Kamala Harris, we know this, is pro-union. We know that she is pro-working class, but it was interesting in her closing remarks-ish at the Ellipse. Did you think she said enough about, this populist messaging about corporations? You had said, I'm hoping she does.
Well, first of all, let me say, I thought it was an extraordinarily wonderful closing address. She hit a perfect note. She said all the right things. And I could not have made it better, except Heather, for this one issue, she could have said, in my term of office, when I'm president, I'm going to keep antitrust, anti-monopoly going. In fact, I'm going to give even more resources to Lena Khan and to Cantor at the
DOJ, yeah.
At the Department of Justice Antitrust Division. We're going to make antitrust. I'm going to bust up the monopolies. I'm not going to allow big companies, big corporations to set prices and keep prices high. And I'm going to also help unions kind of recover. And I'm not going to let Wall Street continue to be a casino using other people's money. And she could go back and say all of these problems have been with us for 30 or 40 years, and the Democrats and Democratic administrations are partly to blame.
Yep.
And I'm not going to let trade take away our jobs.
Right. It would have, those couple paragraphs would have been a nice addition, but it was a fabulous speech.
It was a wonderful speech.
Yeah. But we do a lot of messaging, Michael and I, message testing in our day job. Corporations is a word, companies less so, that people resonate with. And they think...
Resonate positively?
No, that's the point. I mean, if she says, I am fighting corporations, that kind of sentence,
big
people...
corporations,
Yeah,
that's
big
right.
corporations. Even just corporations, people say, oh, good, that person's fighting for something that I am not. I am not a corporation.
And the
corporation is
billionaires.
against me.
It's
Yes.
also the billionaires. I mean, we've never had as much money in politics coming from billionaires.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk is exhibit number one.
Yep, he is Exhibit A. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to ask, Bob, because I think that as someone just in the world seeing Democratic messaging come at me on social media and on, I guess not TV anymore, but other forms of social media with video, I do see hints of this message that you're talking about. So it's just that it's not forceful enough, right?
Well, it's Bernie Sanders, it's Sherrod Brown, it's you do see Democrats with this message,
Right.
But it's not the official message of the Democratic Party. It's not. The Democratic Party is so frightened. The Democratic financial committees all want to make sure that all of the billionaires are on their side and the corporations are on their side, and everybody wants to reassure those. Plutocrats that the Democratic Party is in favor of capitalism. Well, isn't it time to take stock and realize that the kind of capitalism we have is not working for most people?
To take stock.
Yes, and to give people
And give it
shares
to
of
people
stock.
and not buy it back for the yes. So I have to brag a little bit about some of our videos that we've been putting out that have done incredibly well, and I think the reason we do them is because they're important messages, and we feel that there are gaps in the mainstream media. So we had an incredibly successful video that was the 10 worst things about the Trump presidency that was actually 75. That is the most viewed video we have on YouTube. That's incredible.
Viewed by
Millions of people.
millions.
But a range. So YouTube, if you want to get into it, skews mailer in terms of audiences on the entire platform, but also in terms of the viewers looking at that particular video. But we also did a video about Trump's business failures. And that has done 3.7 million, I think, Michael, on TikTok.
Which is a good example, if you don't mind me cutting
please.
in, of young people who are less familiar with elements of Trump's story, seeing it for the first time and either being shocked or, in this case, sort of thinking, oh my God, not just shocked, but how ridiculous that he's been this character for so long and people still elect him.
Yeah.
You mean this character as being assuming everybody assumes he's a successful businessman.
Exactly.
When he's actually a lousy businessman.
And a
He
con
lost
man.
more money
Failure.
over his career than he made.
And a con man and a fake version of himself.
His ability as a con man should never be understated. He is he's P.T. Barnum on steroids. I mean, we have never had a president.
Do you know
or
who
presidential...
P.T. Barnum is?
I do, actually. There's a
Michael!
famous anecdote where P.T. Barnum's famous con was that he would lay bricks around a tent. And he would do this, and people would follow him because they'd be like, why is this man just laying bricks in a circle around the tent? Then he'd pick all of them up and then go inside the tent. And in order to get into the tent, you'd have to pay 10 cents.
See?
Did you know that?
Yes. No, I didn't know
even
that.
know
It's a
that.
great
I didn't
story.
know that.
Michael, you're coming on every Klatch.
Michael, you're great. And I want to actually, before we end, I want to say to both of you, I am proud being your colleague. And Inequality Media Civic Action has done some fabulous work. And if Kamala Harris wins,
When
she wins, it will be because of Inequality Media Civic Action.
Robert Reich.
And on that upbeat note.
Wait, but
yes.
can I ask you one more thing?
Yes.
So the last video, just to interrupt everybody, the last video that we did was the Red Mirage video, right? So we're just reminding people, and the news did a better job of this years ago, and they are not doing a good job of it today, which is the reality. This is just statistics. This is just political science, is that rural areas are counted first because they have fewer people in them, and they quickly get counted, and those tend to go red, and then more populated areas get counted, those tend to go blue, and so there is a red mirage and then is a blue shift. And so that's when Trump says, look at it being stolen. I told you so. The numbers are changing in front of us. That's rigged. No. That is science. And so we did a video on that, and I think it's incredibly important to do what's called pre-bunking. So we do a lot of debunking, which is, you know, the thing that just happened? Let me tell you why that was wrong. But when you pre-bunk, you look ahead. It's a phrase. And you look ahead and you say, get ready for this disinformation. And actually, it's more effective in that way. So can you tell us, we have a couple days left, what is going to, there can be a contested election, which is defined in various ways. The House can be involved. Do we have time to get into this, or do we want to wait till Tuesday night?
We probably want to wait till Tuesday night for most of this. But let me just say, we are not going to know the results of this election on Tuesday night. We are probably not going to know the results of this election Wednesday morning. It could be days. It could be weeks. If you thought Gore versus Bush or Bush v. Gore was a big issue in 2000, do you remember that, Michael?
I was 4, so not quite.
You don't have to say that.
Sorry.
Well, I was around. I was getting old.
I was barely around.
You were barely around. But I think that the courts are going to be involved. There's going to be litigation. There are going to be recounts. Because we are so close.
I know.
I mean, not just the polls, but if you we have only 7 battleground states. In those battleground states, if you look to 2020 and 2016, they were all decided by maybe around 100,000 people.
I know.
So we're talking about tiny little numbers.
I did like the latest Marist poll, though.
That's true. Looking good in the swing states around the Great Lakes.
By 2 and 3.
It's all turnout.
That's true.
It's all
It is.
turnout.
And you've been around doing
And
this for
I
65
have been
years.
around, and I know turnout when I see turnout. And on that note, and let me thank Michael and Heather, and thank all of you.
And thank you, Bob.
Well, let me just say, and this is for all of you. I know, I think I know, because I woke up so upset this morning. I know what you're going through, because we're all going through it. This is a stressful time. Some of you are just not reading the newspapers or listening to radio or television or even social media, and I understand that. But stay with us, because we're giving you the truth, and we appreciate you. And we appreciate the work you've done, to the extent that you have done work for Kamala Harris. And this election is so different from previous elections in the sense that we now know Trump has been very clear about what he plans to do if he is reelected in terms of vengeance against his opponents and substituting his loyalists for the civil service and basically getting America on a path toward the past, taking away the rights of women in every respect. So the stakes are huge. And please join us Tuesday. What time are we going to do it?
9 p.m. Pacific.
9 p.m. Pacific.
Midnight on the East.
Midnight on the East Coast. Hopefully we'll have, well, we're probably not going to have some results, but we'll have some assurance, some assuring words, I hope, for you. But most importantly, thank you for joining us.